And it makes, as Thomas said, it makes your life 1,000 times easier when you're traveling, especially if you're traveling in a foreign country, because it's all right there. It makes it super easy for you to do things. And the other anecdote I'll give you is my fiance and I went to Brazil a couple years ago, and they're experiencing kind of the same evolution or revolution in cell phones and online payments. And they're, again, ahead of the curve, especially among adoption. And so I will never forget this. We were in this tiny little surf shop by the beach. And I went in there to buy a soda because I was thirsty. And as I was kind of, walking around and just looking, two guys came in, walked by me, grabbed 2 candy bars from the little candy aisle, walked around the aisle, held up their phones, and walked out of the store holding their phones. So they didn't even stop to, air quote, pay at the cashier, but I could see on their phone that the app that they used to make their payments connected with the cashier's app, and it just, it made the air payments as they walked by. They didn't even have to go and hold the thing over the unit. They just walked by, waved at it basically, and it accepted their payments. And I remember standing there going, whoa, that is awesome. 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 And when we were on the beach, there were all these vendors going up and down the beach selling everything from, clothes to sunglasses to coconuts. And they all had little payment pads that were basically iPhones or similar to that. And they none of them accepted cash. So the only way you could buy a coconut on the beach was to go up there with your phone. You couldn't even do it with a card. You had to go up there with your phone and show them. And that's how you make a payment. And because all those things are tied up in their economy and that's a natural way that they do things, especially the younger generation, then that's just going to become more and more part of their seamless making payments evolution. And as those things sweep across foreign markets or the places outside of the United States, the more and more possibilities they are to do all these things. And so to me, there's that part of it that is exciting. The other part that I find exciting is the cross-border transfers. So a company like Wise, Visa started their own concept called Visa Direct. And basically what it does is allows you to move money across borders. So in other words, from the United States to, Taiwan. And it allows you to do that for less fees and not having to go to the bank and having to do something god awful like a wire transfer. If you've never done something like that, it's one of the worst experiences you'll ever have in a bank. The banker and for the person sending the money, it's a nightmare. And it's also very expensive, naturally. So something like cross-border payments, which there's trillions of dollars moving back and forth across borders from people that think of people that come here from Latin America. And they work really hard to do 2 or 3 jobs and they want to send money back to their family in Colombia. The best way to do that is through some of these cross-border payment systems that they have now, like Wise, Remitly, Visa Direct, PayPal has one. There's just a lot of them. But anyway, I think that is going to become a bigger and bigger thing, especially as we continue to have different currencies and have that need to move money. And the reason why I'm so excited about this is there's no way that a company like Visa would embrace this idea and spend a lot of money on it unless they thought it was going to be a big thing. And they're a leader in this space as far as like payments go. And the fact that they're promoting it, pushing it, and branching away from their core business to get something started like this, that to me says, okay, there's an opportunity here.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's a whole nother avenue potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
That goes beyond even what we've discussed up to now, just to compound on top of all the other trends going on.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool.
What about for the whole crypto thing? I mean, that used to be, I remember when I first started looking at Visa, that was a pretty loud thing. Like even in earnings calls, there's a lot of talk. Some of that has died down, but I feel like it's something that if you're going to have a position in a company like this, you should have at least a basic understanding of like what's the real threat and like how are incumbents dealing with that. So shed some light on that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I think if you talk to most rational people about Bitcoin and get away from the Dogecoin bros, talk to rational people, most people will admit that the blockchain technologies have a lot to offer society. The problem is there's kind of a layered effect of different issues, if you will. Number one, there's a lot of fraud. And right now it seems like there's more fraud than there is good. And so human nature being what it is, if there's an opportunity to do bad, some people are going to do bad. And it enables them to do bad things in part because there's little to no way to regulate it. There's no way to really track who the bad people are. The systems that we have in place now, the way that we all use money, whether it's here in the United States or abroad, have some standardized regulations. So there's a means to an end to help protect yourself in some way, shape, or form. And with crypto, the nature of it is to be anonymous, and that lends itself to not being able to be regulated. And unfortunately, it needs to be. And until that barrier is really crossed, I think it's going to be really, really hard for crypto to really achieve, I think, the potential that it could have for society. And I guess the next part of it is that the adoption curve of it, like right now, to use it to make a payment, if you want to go buy pizza with some sort of crypto you own, it ain't easy. And it's really, really clumsy. It's very cumbersome. There's not a lot of acceptance for it. And because of the volatility of the value of it, it's really hard to justify possibly losing, $300 to go buy a pizza, right? If you do that with stable, normal current, air quote, normal currencies like a dollar or a euro, you spend a dollar, you know what you're going to get for a dollar. With the volatility of the price or of a crypto, it's really hard to know if you spend it, is the person receiving it getting a value? Are you losing money? And so that just makes it really hard for it to be used. So it's really hard to use, very, very hard to use. So that puts a lot of barriers in place. Then the value of it makes it very hard. And then the third part is, until I can see my 87-year-old mother using crypto as easily as she uses her debit card, I just, color me skeptical that the adoption thing is ever going to get to where it could be. Could it? Of course it could. Could I be 100% wrong? Absolutely. But I think in my lifetime, I don't anticipate seeing something like that take full effect. As an investor, you have to acknowledge that crypto blockchain technologies has some utility, and at some point somebody's going to, air quote, crack the code and make part of them useful for society. The thing I like is a lot of the companies that I like and invest in are embracing technology and embracing working with crypto to try to, air quote, be ahead of the curve. And so a company like Visa and MasterCard, for example, they have embraced working with crypto, blockchain kinds of people, whether different businesses or developers, to try to make it as easy as they can for their customers. And I think that's a smart way to go about it, because they're not putting their head in the sand and just ignoring something that could be a potential threat for them. And they're just kind of having open arms and saying, okay, if this is going to be a thing, we're going to be involved with it. We're going to be a part of it. And I think that is the smart way to go about doing it. Too many times I think we see in industry, a company sees that, you look at Blockbuster and Netflix, right? There's no way that the people running Blockbuster didn't know in some level that Netflix was coming for them, and they just chose to ignore until it was too late. My ex-wife used to work for PetSmart, and when she was working for them, they had zero presence in online sales. They didn't even have a website. And so, and this is when companies like Chewy and Petco and all these other companies are like hugely embracing the internet. And there's PetSmart, one of the biggest pet retailers with no presence. Like, duh. And so, it's just stuff like that you see sometimes in industry. So, long story short, when I see a company like Visa or MasterCard or PayPal or Nubank or any of these people that are embracing using crypto or trying to make it easier for their customers, I think that's a good thing to do.
100%. I appreciate you breaking that down, and it is important to consider what's the other side of the coin for any industry company investment. All right. This all might be very exciting. So let's get down to it. Rubbing my hands together. How do we make money from this?
How do you make money from this? I think, well, the way that I have chosen to make money from this is try to find, I guess, who I think are going to be the best of breed in the different sectors and how they can benefit from being the best. So when I think about a company like Visa or MasterCard, you could, interchange them, but I chose Visa mostly because they have a much, much bigger presence here in the United States and than they do abroad. And until things change, the United States is still kind of the leader in the global economy.